The doorbell rang at 6:47 a.m. on a Wednesday morning in March 2028. Sarah Richardson had been awake for hours already. She never really slept anymore. After 7 years of unanswered questions and sleepless nights, she'd learned to expect nothing but disappointment. "Mrs. Richardson, this is Detective Maria Chen with the Riverside County Cold Case Unit." Her hand went to her throat, that familiar tightness returning. 7 years of waiting, of wondering, of imagining every possible scenario about what happened to her daughter Emma on that sunny October afternoon in 2021. We found him. 300 miles away in a quiet neighborhood outside Sacramento. Unmarked police vehicles lined the residential street. Porch lights flickered on as neighbors peered through windows. Inside a modest 2-story home, a 58-year-old man was being placed in handcuffs, confusion spreading across his face. He'd spent 7 years believing he'd gotten away with it. Riverside County, California, stretches across diverse terrain, from suburban communities to sprawling desert landscapes where secrets can disappear into vast emptiness. In October 2021, this region became the center of a mystery that would grip the nation. The disappearance of 7-year-old Emma Richardson during what should have been a simple walk home from her friend's house just 4 blocks away. For 7 long years, her case remained unsolved while life in Riverside County continued. Families grew, businesses opened and closed, technology evolved. The world kept turning, but some things stayed constant. Emma's mother, Sarah, never moved from their home on Oakwood Drive, keeping the same phone number just in case. The community never stopped searching. And somewhere, hidden in plain sight, the person responsible walked free. Until now. Before I take you through this heartbreaking case and the incredible breakthrough that finally brought justice, take a moment to subscribe to Cold Case Desk. I cover cases like Emma's every week, stories of families who never gave up and investigators who refused to let time erase the truth. Emma Richardson wasn't just another missing child statistic or a photo on a flyer. To everyone who knew her, she was pure sunshine, a second grader with an infectious giggle and a creativity that knew no bounds. Born in April 2014 to Sarah and Michael Richardson, Emma was the youngest of 2 children. Her older brother Tyler described her as the most annoying little sister in the best way possible. She followed me everywhere, asked a million questions, but made everyone smile. Growing up in Riverside County meant warm weather year-round and tight-knit neighborhoods where kids still played outside until the streetlights came on. Emma embraced this life completely, riding her bike with training wheels up and down Oakwood Drive, organizing elaborate tea parties for her stuffed animals, and creating artwork that covered every inch of the family's refrigerator. By October 2021, at 7 years old, Emma was thriving in 2nd grade at Maplewood Elementary School. Her teacher, Mrs. Patricia Alvarez, remembered her as exceptionally bright and endlessly curious. "Emma asked more questions than any student I've ever taught," Mrs. Alvarez recalled. "Why is the sky blue? How do birds know where to go? Where does the moon go during the day?" She wanted to understand everything. Emma's daily routine was predictable and safe. Sarah would walk her to the bus stop each morning at 7:30 a.m., waiting until the yellow school bus disappeared around the corner. After school, Emma attended an aftercare program until Sarah finished her nursing shift at Riverside Community Hospital. The Richardson home on Oakwood Drive was filled with evidence of Emma's vibrant personality. Her bedroom walls displayed her crayon drawings, mostly rainbows, unicorns, and her family holding hands under a smiling sun. A bookshelf overflowed with picture books she'd memorized and could read to anyone who would listen. She wanted to be an artist, Sarah explained in a 2022 interview, her voice breaking. Every day she'd come home with new drawings, new ideas. She'd tape them to the walls, proud of every single one. Though Emma was only 7, she had a best friend who lived 4 blocks away, Olivia Martinez, also 7, who she'd known since preschool. The girls were inseparable, spending hours playing make-believe, putting on performances for their families, and planning their future as sisters forever. The weekend before she vanished, Emma had attended Olivia's birthday party at the local park. Photos from that afternoon show Emma in her favorite purple dress, face painted like a butterfly, holding a balloon and beaming at the camera. It would be the last photograph ever taken of Emma Richardson. No one could have predicted that just 3 days later, on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon in October 2021, Emma would leave Olivia's house for a 4-block walk home, a route she'd walked dozens of times, and disappear without a trace. Where are you watching from today? Drop your location in the comments below. It's remarkable how Emma's story from a California suburb is now reaching people across the globe. The day everything changed. Tuesday, October 12, 2021, was a normal fall day in Riverside County. The temperature hovered around 75 degrees, typical Southern California weather with clear skies and gentle breezes. Emma Richardson woke up that morning excited. It was a shortened school day due to teacher conferences, meaning she'd be home by 1 p.m. instead of the usual 3:30. Even better, her mother had arranged for her to spend the afternoon playing at Olivia's house. Sarah Richardson dropped Emma at the bus stop at 7:25 a.m. Security footage from a neighbor's Ring camera captured the moment. Emma in her pink backpack covered with unicorn patches, turning to wave goodbye to her mother before climbing onto bus 47. The school day was uneventful. Emma's teacher noted she seemed her usual cheerful self during morning lessons. She ate lunch with Olivia in the cafeteria, chicken nuggets and apple slices, according to the lunch monitor's log. At 12:45 p.m., the shortened day ended. Sarah had arranged with Olivia's mother, Carmen Martinez, for Emma to go home with Olivia. Carmen picked up both girls from school in her silver Honda CR-V. Security cameras at Maplewood Elementary captured the girls climbing into the vehicle, giggling about something only 7-year-olds find hilarious. They arrived at the Martinez home on Elm Street at approximately 1 p.m. For the next 3 hours, the girls played in Olivia's backyard, jumping on the trampoline, drawing with sidewalk chalk and having snacks that Carmen provided. They were having such a good time, Carmen would later tell detectives, tears streaming down her face. Just 2 little girls being kids, completely innocent and happy. At 4:15 p.m., Sarah Richardson called Carmen to let her know she was leaving the hospital and would pick Emma up in about 20 minutes. But Emma, familiar with the route and eager to surprise her mother by being responsible, asked if she could walk home instead. The walk from the Martinez house to the Richardson home was straightforward. 4 blocks along well-maintained sidewalks in a residential neighborhood. Emma had made this walk at least a dozen times, always in daylight, usually with an adult, but occasionally with just Tyler when he was home. Carmen hesitated. The neighborhood was safe. Emma knew the route and it was still fully light outside. After checking with Sarah by phone, who reluctantly agreed if Emma left immediately, Carmen walked Emma to the front door. "Text me the second she gets home," Sarah had insisted during that phone call. "And Emma, you walk straight home. No stopping, no talking to anyone, straight home." "I promise, Mommy," Emma had replied, her voice bright with pride at being trusted to walk alone. At 4:22 p.m., according to Carmen's doorbell camera, Emma Richardson stepped off the Martinez front porch. She wore the same clothes from school: jeans, a yellow t-shirt with a smiley face, pink sneakers, and her unicorn backpack. She waved goodbye to Olivia and Carmen, then turned right, heading toward Oakwood Drive. The walk should have taken no more than 10 minutes. Mrs. Helen Yoshida, a retired teacher who lived on Maple Street, 2 blocks into Emma's route, told police she saw a little girl matching Emma's description walking past her house at approximately 4:27 p.m. "She was skipping," Mrs. Yoshida recalled. "She seemed happy, carefree. Just a child enjoying a beautiful afternoon." This would be the last confirmed sighting of Emma Richardson. At 4:35 p.m., Sarah Richardson pulled into her driveway on Oakwood Drive, expecting to find Emma already home. The house was empty. She immediately called Carmen. "Is Emma still there?" "No, she left at 4:22. She should have been home by now." Sarah's heart began to race. She ran back outside, scanning the street in both directions. She called Emma's name, her voice growing louder, more frantic with each call. By 4:40 p.m., Sarah was running toward the Martinez house, calling Emma's phone, a basic device with GPS that Sarah had insisted she carry. The phone rang, but went to voicemail. Emma's cheerful recorded voice, "Hi, this is Emma. I can't answer right now, but leave a message," was like a knife to Sarah's heart. Carmen and her husband, David, immediately joined the search. They drove slowly along the route, checking every yard, every alley, every possible place a 7-year-old might have stopped. By 4:50 p.m., they called 911. "My daughter is missing," Sarah told the dispatcher, her voice shaking. "She was walking home and she never made it. Please, you have to send someone now." Within minutes, Riverside County Sheriff's deputies arrived at the Richardson home. Deputy Marcus Johnson took Sarah's statement, trying to remain calm despite the sinking feeling in his gut. A missing 7-year-old in broad daylight was every officer's nightmare. "We're going to find her," he promised Sarah, though he couldn't know if that was true. By sunset, over 50 officers were searching the 4-block area. Helicopters with thermal imaging cameras swept overhead. K9 units tracked Emma's scent from the Martinez house. The dogs followed her path for 2 blocks before losing the trail completely at the corner of Maple and Pine Streets. That's where something had happened, where Emma Richardson had somehow vanished. As darkness fell on October 12, 2021, floodlights illuminated the search area. Neighbors poured out of their homes to help, calling Emma's name into the night. Local news stations broadcast her photo, her description, a plea for anyone with information to come forward. Sarah Richardson stood in the street, her voice hoarse from calling her daughter's name, refusing to go inside, refusing to accept that Emma was really gone. "She's 7 years old," Sarah kept repeating to anyone who would listen. "She's just a baby. Please, someone must have seen something." The discovery that would devastate the community came the next morning. At 7:15 a.m. on Wednesday, October 13th, a sanitation worker found Emma's unicorn backpack in a dumpster behind a strip mall 3 miles from where she'd disappeared, far beyond where a 7-year-old could have walked on her own. Inside the backpack, Emma's school supplies, her lunchbox and her phone, deliberately powered off. What wasn't there was Emma. The investigation begins. The discovery of Emma's backpack transformed what had been a missing child case into a suspected abduction. Sheriff Robert Martinez, a 25-year veteran of the Riverside County Sheriff's Department, personally took command of the investigation. At a hastily arranged press conference outside the sheriff's station, his voice was grave. "We are treating Emma Richardson's disappearance as a stranger abduction. Every resource at our disposal is being deployed to find her and bring her home safely." The FBI's child abduction. Rapid deployment team arrived within hours. The first 24 hours after a child goes missing are critical. Statistically, if a child isn't found within that window, the likelihood of a tragic outcome increases dramatically. Special Agent Linda Torres established a command center at the Riverside County Sheriff's Station. The walls were soon covered with maps, timelines, and Emma's smiling school photo, a constant reminder of what they were fighting for. "Emma is 7 years old," Torres told the assembled task force. "She's dependent on adults for everything. If someone took her, they took her for a reason. We need to identify every person who was in that neighborhood yesterday afternoon." The investigation team included 12 FBI agents, 20 sheriff's deputies, and specialists in child psychology, forensic analysis, and geographic profiling. They began with the basics, documenting Emma's last known movements and identifying potential witnesses. The Martinez family's doorbell camera provided crucial footage showing Emma leaving at exactly 4:22 p.m. Traffic cameras and residential security systems captured additional glimpses of Emma's route until Maple and Pine Streets, where the trail went cold. "This is where something happened," said Detective James Park, the lead investigator. "We have clear footage of Emma walking on Maple Street at 4:27 p.m. After that, nothing. She vanished in a 2-block radius." That 2-block area became the focus of an intensive search. Every home was canvassed, every resident interviewed. Investigators checked basements, garages, sheds, anywhere a child might be hidden. The backpack discovery complicated the timeline. The strip mall where it was found was 3.2 miles from the abduction site. Someone had driven Emma there, or driven her backpack there to mislead investigators. Forensic teams processed the backpack and its contents. The phone had been wiped clean of fingerprints. The backpack showed no signs of struggle, no tears, no blood. Whoever had taken Emma had been careful. "We're dealing with someone who planned this," Agent Torres concluded grimly. "This wasn't a crime of opportunity. Someone knew Emma's route, knew her schedule, and waited for their moment." The investigation quickly developed a list of potential suspects. In child abduction cases, statistics pointed to certain categories of offenders: family members, known acquaintances, and registered sex offenders. The Richardson and Martinez families were immediately investigated, standard procedure that Sarah understood intellectually but found devastating emotionally. "They're wasting time investigating us when someone has my daughter," she told reporters. Michael Richardson, Emma's father, was working at a construction site 40 miles away when Emma disappeared. Dozens of co-workers confirmed his presence. Tyler, Emma's brother, had been at high school basketball practice with over 30 witnesses. The families were quickly cleared, but precious time had been lost. The second category, known acquaintances, required painstaking investigation. Every teacher, coach, neighbor, and family friend who had contact with Emma was interviewed. Background checks were run on parents of Emma's classmates, staff at her school, even the bus driver who transported her each day. One person drew immediate attention: Marcus Webb, a 32-year-old maintenance worker at Maplewood Elementary, who had a prior arrest for drug possession. He'd been working at the school on October 12th and had access to student schedules. Webb's apartment was searched. His electronic devices were seized. He was interrogated for 6 hours. His alibi, that he'd been working at the school until 6:00 p.m., was verified by multiple witnesses and time-stamped security footage. He was cleared, but remained on the suspect list. The third category was the most disturbing: registered sex offenders. Riverside County had 43 registered offenders living within a 20-mile radius of Emma's neighborhood. Each one was located and interviewed. Most had verifiable alibis, several did not. Among those without solid alibis was Dennis Crowley, a 51-year-old convicted of child molestation in 2008. He lived 4.7 miles from the Richardson home. When detectives knocked on his door on October 14th, he'd seemed nervous, evasive about his whereabouts on October 12th. His home was searched. His computer was seized and forensically analyzed. Detectives spent weeks investigating Crowley, certain they had their suspect. But there was no evidence, no connection to Emma, no physical evidence, no witnesses, nothing to tie him to the crime beyond his criminal history. As October turned to November, the investigation expanded beyond Riverside County. FBI bulletins went nationwide. Emma's case was featured on news programs across America. The National Center for Missing Exploited Children distributed millions of posters with Emma's face. Sarah Richardson became the public face of the search. She appeared on morning shows, cable news, anywhere that would give her a platform to beg for Emma's return. "If someone has my daughter, please," Sarah pleaded directly into cameras, tears streaming down her face. "Please let her come home. She's 7 years old. She needs her mother. She's scared, and she wants to come home." Behind the scenes, the investigation was generating thousands of tips, most well-intentioned, but ultimately useless. Psychics called claiming to know Emma's location. Conspiracy theorists blamed everyone from government agencies to organized crime rings. Each tip had to be investigated. Each lead had to be chased down. Detectives worked 18-hour days, surviving on coffee and determination. By December 2021, 3 months after Emma vanished, the active investigation began to slow. The task force was reduced in size. FBI agents returned to other cases. The daily search efforts ceased. Emma Richardson's case was becoming cold. If you're finding this story as compelling and heartbreaking as I am, please hit that subscribe button for Cold Case Desk. Your support helps bring attention to cases like Emma's. The long wait for answers. When a 7-year-old child disappears, time fractures into before and after. For the Richardson family, October 12, 2021, became a dividing line between the life they knew and a nightmare from which they couldn't wake. "People expect you to grieve and then move on," Sarah Richardson explained in a 2023 interview. "But how do you grieve when you don't know what you're grieving? Is she alive? Is she suffering? Is she... She couldn't finish the sentence. The Richardson home became a shrine to Emma. Her bedroom remained untouched, toys exactly where she'd left them, her drawings still taped to the walls, her bed made with the unicorn comforter she'd loved. Sarah went in every day, sitting on the floor, talking to the daughter who wasn't there. Michael Richardson, Emma's father, couldn't bear to stay. By March 2022, he'd moved out, unable to function in the home where Emma's absence was so overwhelming. "I felt like I was drowning," he admitted later. "Every corner of that house screamed her name." The marriage didn't survive. By 2023, Sarah and Michael were divorced, another casualty of the tragedy that had destroyed their family. Tyler, Emma's brother, struggled profoundly. 14 years old when his sister vanished, he blamed himself for not walking her home that day. He'd been at basketball practice, living his own life, while Emma disappeared. He became withdrawn, his grades dropping, friendships falling away. He saw a therapist who specialized in trauma, but the guilt remained a constant weight. "I was supposed to protect her," Tyler said years later, his voice hollow. "I was her big brother. That was my job." Throughout 2022 and 2023, Sarah kept Emma's case in the public eye through social media campaigns, annual remembrance walks, and constant advocacy for missing children. She appeared on true crime podcasts, gave interviews to anyone who would listen, and worked with organizations dedicated to finding missing children. "Someone knows something," became her mantra. Someone saw something that day. Maybe they didn't realize it was important, but somewhere, someone has the piece of information we need. The community of Riverside County tried to move on while never forgetting. Each October 12th, hundreds gathered for a remembrance walk that followed Emma's route, from the Martinez house to the spot on Maple and Pine where she'd vanished. Local businesses kept Emma's poster displayed in their windows. Maplewood Elementary created a scholarship in her name. The spot where her trail went cold was marked with a small memorial, flowers, stuffed animals, handwritten notes from children who'd never met Emma, but mourned her anyway. Detective Park, who'd led the initial investigation, never closed Emma's file. Even as new cases demanded his attention, he returned to Emma's case again and again, rereading witness statements, reviewing evidence, hoping to spot something everyone had missed. "I have 3 daughters," Park explained. "Emma could have been any of them. I made a promise to Sarah that I would find answers, and I've never stopped trying." By 2024, advances in forensic technology offered new hope. The backpack and its contents, preserved as evidence for 3 years, were reanalyzed using techniques that hadn't existed in 2021. Forensic scientists found a partial fingerprint on Emma's phone, one that hadn't been detected in the initial processing. It was small, smudged, but potentially viable for comparison if they could identify a suspect. More significantly, they found a single hair fiber on the backpack strap. Hair analysis in 2021 had been limited, but by 2024, new DNA extraction methods could potentially identify the person who'd handled that backpack. In early 2025, the Riverside County Sheriff's Department established a dedicated cold case unit. With federal grant money and public pressure, the unit was tasked with revisiting unsolved crimes that still haunted the community. Emma Richardson's case topped the list. The cold case unit detective Maria Chen had transferred to Riverside County from Los Angeles in 2024, bringing with her 15 years of experience in cold case investigations. When Sheriff Martinez asked her to lead the new cold case unit, one name immediately came to mind. "I want to work Emma Richardson's case," Chen told him. "I remember when it happened. I remember seeing that little girl's face everywhere and wondering how someone could just disappear." Joining Chen was forensic specialist Dr. Kevin Liu, whose expertise in genetic genealogy had helped solve 3 cold cases in Northern California. Together, they brought fresh perspectives and cutting-edge technology to a case that had stumped investigators for years. Their first step was digitalizing the entire case file, over 5,000 pages of reports, witness statements, tips, and investigative notes. They created a comprehensive database that allowed them to search for connections and patterns that might not have been apparent in paper files. We approached it systematically, Chen explained. Every person mentioned in the investigation, every vehicle seen in the area, every piece of physical evidence, all catalogued and cross-referenced. The hair fiber found on Emma's backpack became their primary focus. Dr. Liu coordinated with the FBI's forensic laboratory to attempt DNA extraction using a revolutionary new technique. Hair without a root typically doesn't yield nuclear DNA, Dr. Liu explained. But advancements in protein analysis have changed what's possible. The proteins in hair are coded by DNA, and we can now reverse engineer a DNA profile from those proteins. The process took 4 months. The hair sample was sent to one of only 3 laboratories in the country capable of performing this analysis. In June 2025, the results came back. They had a usable DNA profile. This changes everything, Chen told Sheriff Martinez. If this DNA belongs to Emma's abductor, we can identify them. The profile was uploaded to CODIS, the FBI's national DNA database containing profiles from convicted offenders across the United States. No match. It was disappointing, but not unexpected. Many offenders had never been arrested or had committed their crimes before DNA collection became standard practice. The next step was genetic genealogy, using the DNA profile to identify relatives through public ancestry databases. This technique had solved several high-profile cold cases, including the Golden State Killer. Dr. Liu uploaded the profile to GEDmatch, a database where users voluntarily share their genetic information for genealogical research. Within weeks, the system identified several distant relatives, third and fourth cousins who shared small segments of DNA with the unknown profile. Think of it like building a family tree in reverse, Dr. Liu explained to Sarah Richardson when he updated her on the progress. We start with these distant cousins and work backward to find the common ancestor, then forward to identify everyone in that family line. The process was painstakingly slow. Chen and Dr. Liu worked with professional genealogist Rebecca Warner, who specialized in forensic cases. For months, Warner built elaborate family trees, tracking marriages, births, deaths, and migration patterns. By September 2025, they'd narrowed the field to a specific family line with roots in Southern California. The DNA indicated their unknown subject was male, between 45 and 65 years old, and had ancestors from the Pacific Northwest. Through voluntary DNA submissions from distant relatives who had no idea their cooperation was helping solve a crime, the investigation closed in on a specific branch of the family. On November 3, 2025, Rebecca Warner sent Chen an email with a subject line that made her heart race: possible match, high confidence. The name in the email was Daniel Robert Foster, age 58, a former delivery driver who'd lived in Riverside County in 2021. Chen immediately ran a background check. Foster had no criminal record, not even a traffic ticket. He'd worked for a regional food service company, delivering to schools, restaurants, and businesses throughout Riverside County, including Maplewood Elementary, where Emma had been a student. "We need to confirm this," Chen told her team. "We need his DNA." The man in plain sight. Daniel Robert Foster lived a seemingly ordinary life. At 58, he was recently retired, living in a modest home outside Sacramento with his wife of 22 years. Neighbors described him as quiet, polite, and unremarkable. "He kept to himself mostly," said Jennifer Walsh, who lived next door. "He'd wave if he saw you in the yard, but we never really had conversations. Just seemed like a regular guy." Born in 1967 in Portland, Oregon, Foster had moved to California in the late 1990s. He'd worked various delivery jobs, furniture, office supplies, food service, positions that gave him access to businesses and homes across the region. From 2019 to 2022, he'd worked for Cisco Foods, delivering to schools, restaurants, and institutional kitchens. His route included several schools in Riverside County. Maplewood Elementary was on his delivery schedule. He made weekly drops of cafeteria supplies, typically arriving in the late afternoon when school was dismissing and children were everywhere. When Detective Chen discovered this connection, she felt her pulse quicken. Foster would have seen Emma. He would have known the school's schedule, understood the neighborhood layout, had legitimate reasons to be in the area. "This is our guy," she told Dr. Liu. "I can feel it." But feelings weren't evidence. They needed Foster's DNA to confirm the match. For 2 weeks in November 2025, Chen's team conducted surveillance on Foster, waiting for an opportunity to collect discarded DNA, a technique legal in California that allows investigators to collect items a suspect has abandoned in public. On November 18th, they got their chance. Foster stopped at a Starbucks, ordered coffee, and threw his cup in a public trash can. The cup was immediately retrieved and rushed to the lab. The call came on November 21st. The DNA from Foster's discarded coffee cup matched the hair found on Emma Richardson's backpack. The probability of a random match, 1 in 8.9 trillion. After 4 years, they had found Emma's abductor. Justice at last. The arrest of Daniel Robert Foster occurred at 5:30 a.m. on November 23, 2025, the day before Thanksgiving. Detective Chen wanted him in custody before the holiday, before he might travel, before there was any chance of him fleeing. The tactical team surrounded Foster's home in the pre-dawn darkness. When Chen knocked on the door, Foster's wife answered, confused and frightened. "We have a warrant for Daniel Foster's arrest," Chen said clearly. Foster appeared moments later, already dressed as if he'd been awake. When Chen read him his rights and stated he was being arrested for the kidnapping and murder of Emma Richardson, his face revealed nothing. No shock, no denial, no emotion at all. He didn't ask who Emma was, Chen noted later. Most innocent people, when accused of a crime against someone they don't know, immediately ask questions. Foster said nothing. By mid-morning, news of the arrest had spread across California and then nationwide. Emma's case, which had faded from headlines over the years, suddenly dominated news coverage again. Sarah Richardson learned of the arrest from Detective Chen's phone call at 6:47 a.m. After hanging up, she collapsed on her kitchen floor, 4 years of grief and hope and rage pouring out in uncontrollable sobs. "They found him," she called to Tyler, who came running. "They found the person who took Emma." The community's response was swift and overwhelming. By afternoon, hundreds had gathered outside the sheriff's station, holding signs, lighting candles, and chanting Emma's name. Foster's first court appearance was held via video link, the courtroom packed with reporters, community members, and retired investigators who'd worked Emma's case. District Attorney Patricia Reynolds announced they would seek maximum penalties. Emma Richardson was 7 years old, Reynolds told the court, her voice shaking with controlled anger. She should be 11 now, starting middle school, growing up, living her life. Instead, she's gone, and this man took her from us. The investigation into Foster revealed disturbing patterns. Detectives searching his home found a locked storage unit in the garage. Inside, newspaper clippings about Emma's disappearance, printed maps of the area where she'd vanished, and photographs. Dozens of photographs of Maplewood Elementary taken from his delivery truck, showing children at recess, entering and exiting the building. He was hunting, Chen concluded. Emma wasn't random. He'd been watching, planning, waiting for his opportunity. The trial began in March 2026, 5 years after Emma's disappearance. The prosecution presented overwhelming evidence: the DNA match, Foster's opportunity and access, the disturbing collection found in his home. What the prosecution couldn't provide was Emma's body. Despite extensive searches of properties connected to Foster, despite interrogations and negotiations, Foster never revealed what he'd done with Emma. "Where is she?" Sarah Richardson shouted from the courtroom gallery during testimony, unable to contain her anguish any longer. "What did you do with my baby?" Foster remained silent, his expression blank, refusing to answer. On April 8, 2026, after 3 hours of deliberation, the jury returned guilty verdicts on all counts: kidnapping and second-degree murder. Though Emma's body had never been found, California law allowed murder convictions in cases where the circumstantial evidence was overwhelming. At sentencing 2 weeks later, Judge Robert Harrison addressed Foster directly. "You stole not just a life, but a future. Emma Richardson should be growing up right now, discovering who she wants to be. Because of you, she never got that chance. Because of your continued silence, her family doesn't even have the peace of laying her to rest. Foster was sentenced to life in prison without possibility of parole. A mother's journey. In the aftermath of Foster's conviction, Sarah Richardson faced a painful reality. Emma was gone, and she might never know where her daughter's remains were. "I thought the arrest would bring closure," Sarah admitted in a tearful interview. "But closure requires answers, and we still don't have the most important answer. Where is Emma?" Sarah has continued advocating for changes in California law that would provide additional incentives for convicted offenders to reveal locations of victims' remains. She's lobbied for what she calls Emma's Law, legislation that would offer sentence reductions in exchange for this critical information. "It's not about letting them off easy," Sarah explains. "It's about giving families what they need to finally say goodbye." The Cold Case Unit's success with Emma's case has inspired similar initiatives across California. 5 other counties have established dedicated cold case teams, and the state has increased funding for forensic genetic genealogy research. Emma's case showed what's possible, Detective Chen reflected. It showed that time doesn't have to mean defeat. With persistence and technology, we can bring answers even years later. For the community of Riverside County, Foster's conviction brought a measure of peace, though the loss of Emma remains a permanent scar. The memorial at Maple and Pine Streets has become a permanent fixture, now marked with a bronze plaque that reads, "In memory of Emma Richardson, forever 7, forever missed, forever loved." Maplewood Elementary established the Emma Richardson Scholarship, awarded annually to a second grader who demonstrates exceptional creativity and curiosity, the qualities that defined Emma's too short life. Sarah still lives in the same house on Oakwood Drive. Emma's bedroom remains as it was, though Sarah has finally been able to enter without breaking down. "I talk to her every day," Sarah says. "I tell her about Tyler, who's in college now, about the scholarship kids who remind me of her, about how many people loved her and still do. I tell her that we never stopped looking, never stopped fighting for her. I hope somehow she knows. If Emma's story has moved you, please subscribe to Cold Case Desk and share this video. Cases like Emma's are solved when people keep talking about them, keep demanding justice, keep reminding the world that these children mattered. The case of Emma Richardson reminds us that even in our darkest moments, when hope seems impossible, truth can still emerge. Justice may be delayed, but it can still be delivered, and the love of a mother can endure anything. Even 7 years of not knowing, 7 years of searching, 7 years of refusing to give up. Emma Richardson was 7 years old when she was taken. She'll never grow older than that. But her story, and her mother's determination to find answers, will endure far beyond those 7 years, because some promises are forever, and a mother's promise to her child is the strongest of all. This has been a Cold Case Desk investigation into the disappearance and tragic death of Emma Richardson. If you have information about any cold case, please contact your local law enforcement. Every piece of information, no matter how small, could be the key to bringing a family the answers they desperately need.